most American picture I've ever seen. That was President Trump's takeaway from the now iconic photo taken seconds after his assassination attempt at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th. The shooter, 19-year-old Matthew Crooks, was fatally shot on site. Trump lived, and the moment will forever be etched in history. Axios reporter Alex Isenstadt was in the hospital room where Trump was transferred to after the shooting. That came within millimeters of taking his life, a moment that would certainly make it into his forthcoming book about the president, which is titled Revenge.
In an excerpt published in Vanity Fair, Isenstadt meticulously recounts the day, down to the minute, from all the players involved, from Secret Service, now White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, to campaign spokesman Steve Chung. Isenstadt captured the post-shooting frenzy, including how Trump saw the tragedy in terms of politics and posterity. Joining us now to tell us more is Alex himself, a senior political reporter for Axios, who got a look inside. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So what I found so interesting about the reporting from your book that has now been published is in real time Trump kind of realizing what a winning political moment this was going to be. Obviously, it was a horrifying incident, and he was reasonably fearful for his life, and someone died and other people were injured. So there's certainly a seriousness and a solemn note to the moment. But realizing that it was going to end up being a very an advertisement for him because he looked there was just something respectful about what he did.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Just one quick note. I wasn't actually in the hospital, but I talked to people who were in the hospital with him that day. But one of the things that was interesting was that Trump realized at this moment he had an instinctive understanding of how this moment connected to those of his supporters. His supporters saw him as an ascendant figure, as an underdog fighter, and they very much connected with that throughout the campaign. The moment Trump was shot, he raised up his arm and said, "Fight," because he knew that his supporters would see that as something they could connect with, this underdog who was under duress, who was under attack, who was under threat. He knew that this was a moment he could connect with his supporters, and they would connect with him with.
And not just his supporters, frankly. I mean, I think, didn't Mark Zuckerberg called him after, seeing that photo, has said in interviews that it was badass, that it was, part of, not obviously the entire story because he has business reasons to be closer now to, or more proximate to the Republican Party, but that was part of his motivation for trying to repair, mend fences in the personal relationship with Donald Trump.
It was a moment that appealed to a lot of different people. And if you look back on it, it was one of the moments that may have helped seal the election for Donald Trump. When you look back on things, one has to wonder if Trump was ever going to lose the election after the shooting. It was a moment that riveted the country, that made people see Trump in a new light. It was a moment that everyone thought Trump handled very well.
And then what happens in the immediate time period after Trump? You've talked to people at the hospital. So Trump is recovering from this gunshot wound, the injury to the ear. He's watching the social media reaction in real time as people are coming to him. And what was their strategy moving forward?
There was just complete chaos in the hospital. People were trying to figure out what was going on. People closest to him, including Susie Wiles, didn't know Trump's condition when they first sped off for the hospital. There was a lot of confusion. And so when Trump goes through to his room, when he's in the hospital, he's stretchered into his room, his tie is off, his shirt is very bloody, his shirt is also off, he's only in an undershirt. His shoes have been left at the site. His shoes wouldn't have been retrieved until later in the day. And so at one point, while he's in the hospital, Trump asked for his CAT scan results because he tells a nurse that he wants those results to be released so that way he can have the results compared to that of Joe Biden's. So he was thinking about politics from the very beginning when he was in the hospital that day.
Did anybody mention anything at all about the fact that there was a man who did die? I mean, I certainly am grateful, as every American, that the president was okay. Of course, it's a horrifying incident. This is not in any way to minimize the tragedy of the fact that someone tried to assassinate him. But there's such a minimal mention of the fact that a man did die, and the fact that the team went immediately into political strategy and how this might connect with his base, as opposed to a more human reaction of, oh my God.
Well, they did have a
someone
memoriam
died.
for the person who died.
They had a memoriam, but we are
RNC.
talking about what happened there. We're talking about what Alex has reported is what the president said first and foremost, as opposed to, is everybody okay? Was anyone hurt? It's just my feelings, and that would be my feeling whether it was a Democrat or a Republican. I find that just where we have come to as a society, politics before the fact that someone died here. That's just my feelings.
Trump did ask about his one of the camera people who took one of those famous pictures of him. He wanted to know how they were doing. Trump was concerned about how other people were faring, and he definitely took a lot of interest in the family of Corey Comparatore, who is one of his supporters who was killed. So, look, Trump has taken a lot of interest in what happened to people who were impacted that day in the months after, for sure.
Well, that's good to know, and I'm glad to hear it.
What do you think about Trump's fear for his then there was the incident at the golf course shortly thereafter where there was someone hiding in the bushes. Do you think, or based on you talking to people in his orbit, does Trump go from rally to rally or public meeting to public meeting thinking that he could be in imminent peril? Was this like a wake-up call? Was it, no, he fully expects something like this to eventually happen? Was it, oh my God, how could this happen? How could the security be so lax? I wonder if you have any insights into his mindset.
Yeah.
Does he think that he's such a high target that, yeah, it could happen every time he steps off the plane?
It definitely became something that he was thinking about a lot more after this incident. The morning after the shooting, he was talking to a former aide, and he told the aide that the bullet was within a hair of, if it had hit him, his brain would have exploded like a watermelon on live television. It was something that definitely impacted him in the weeks to come, when there became increasingly concerns about Iran trying to attack his plane. He thought about it a fair amount. He was asking about the staging of his events and what his visibility would look like there. So he definitely thought about these things much more after the Butler shooting.
It is still, I mean, it's surreal that it happened. Like, I know that it happened, and it's not unusual or uncommon for a high-profile celebrity or political figure to face an assassination attempt. This happened to several of it didn't happen to our recent presidents, but it happened to Reagan and others. Obviously, several presidents have been assassinated, so there's nothing necessarily uncommon about it. But for it was like a moment from a piece of entertainment, from TV or movies, that it would be that it would graze his ear and be within a millimeter or however of actually killing him, of actually ending the life of the former president, the likely next president, at the same time that the president and Joe Biden was about to actually step down from running. We could have had a total transformation in who was actually running to be president in a short amount of time. Like, that sounds like an implausible movie script that we actually witnessed it happen.
We have
Go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
we have the iconic photo of President Reagan coming out of, I think it was the Hilton Hotel, obviously the iconic photos of the Kennedy assassination. All Americans of goodwill, no matter what our politics, were very concerned after this incident that the Secret Service was obviously very lax. And a lot was talked about at the time, and I don't think any of us ever felt that was totally closed. How did that even happen? How is it that someone had seen this young man? Someone had actually mentioned that he was on the roof. The fact that he even was able to shoot that gun, something went terribly wrong, and I certainly hope that the kinds of changes that needed to be made after that incident have been made.
And that's a question for you. With all the concerns in kind of MAGA online conservative media world about the performance of the Secret Service, was that an immediate concern among Trump and his inner circle?
At that moment, it was just about getting the president to safety. When they were preparing to leave the hospital that day. They had three different, the Secret Service came to them and said, we have three different options. Either you go to Bedminster, you go to Milwaukee where the convention's about to be held, or you go back to Mar-a-Lago. They eventually picked Bedminster. So there was immediate concern about what they do going forward. Sean Curran, who is the head of Trump's detail and who is now the head of the Secret Service, he actually went to Trump's aides and said, look, I'm going to get blamed for this. I'm going to get thrown under the bus by senior Secret Service leadership. That's kind of what ended up happening. The Secret Service leadership went to Susie Wiles and said they wanted to put Sean Curran, they wanted to put him on leave for a bit. And she said, no, you're not doing that. So there was some scrutiny into Secret Service for sure in the hours after this event happened. But one of the things I also go into in this chapter is that there had been plenty of security run-ins for Trump in the months and weeks leading up to Butler, including an incident when he went to Iowa. Trump went to Iowa to visit a college frat house, and Secret Service in the day before Trump made that visit went to the frat house and found a room that was filled with guns. Those guns had to have been locked away before Trump could appear the next day. That was just one example of several security scares that Trump had before Butler even happened.
Well, even under the best of circumstances, the president, we know in the modern era, there are threats against the life of the president under normal circumstances. I know under Obama, he had 3 times the amount. So this is just a terrible reality of our current state of affairs, and let's just hope that Secret Service has it together. The last thing this country needs now is anything more like this. So God bless everyone involved.
Alex Isenstadt, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up next, more Rising. Stay tuned.